Hi guys. My name is Brian Liu, and I'm a year 13 student this year. I'm going to go to college next year. Today I want to share with you my experiences in two countries that I've really fell in love with. One of them is Cambodia, and the other is Haiti. All my life, ever since I was a little child, I've been exposed to working with the poor, working with the unfortunate. I've been very blessed to work in charity organizations. And this exposure to the poor, this exposure to the world's people has profoundly affected my character. When I was 5 years old, our family was driving to an Amish village in Philadelphia, and this was the first time I was going to Amish village. I didn't know who the Amish people were. I didn't know what they stood for. And so I asked my dad, "Dad, who are the Amish people?" And then my dad explains that they were people who lived without electricity and lived without television. And I was so bewildered, I was so indignant, I asked, "Can we help them?" But this is not a speech about Amish people. It's a speech about my experiences in Cambodia and in Haiti, and how that has helped me understand more deeply what giving is. In 2006, our family was having dinner, and my father, out of the blue, asked us, "Would you like to move to Cambodia?" I was like, "Cambodia?" I asked if that was a country in Africa. For those who don't know where Cambodia is, it's right next to Thailand. It's a Southeast Asian country. I later learned that Cambodia is known for its past glory as a Southeast Asian empire. But more unfortunately, the atrocities that happened during the Khmer Rouge, where 1.7 million people lost their lives. I'm sure that I think people who've gone to Cambodia will agree with me that what separates Cambodians from the rest of the world's people is their ability and their willingness to be open about their past bitterness. So one of my favorite things to do was to ask my Cambodian friends, the people I knew, what was life like under the Khmer Rouge? Tell me what was life like growing up during that time. And one person I asked is named Sukchia, and I will never forget his story. Sukchia was only a boy when the Khmer Rouge marched into Phnom Penh. His family was separated, his mom and dad were sent to labor camps, and he was sent to a children's camp. The highlight of the story took place on the eve of Sukchia's escape. Somehow, he and his friends managed to cut through the wire fence that surrounded their children's compound, and they fled. They fled to find their parents, to reunite with their parents. Sukchia managed to find his mother, but then the soldiers arrived. And in that chaos, in that commotion, Sukchia was separated from his mom and never saw her again. Here's a boy about the age of 5, scared, terrified, lonely, with a bunch of other people who are scared, terrified, and lonely. How an experience it must have been. I can't imagine the pain that he must have been through, the fear, not knowing where his parents were. He was later adopted by a foster family, but this family didn't treat him very well. Every single day, and I mean daily, Sukchia told me the word daily, he was beaten up by his mother, and his mother used a bamboo stick. This is why I believe that family is so important to us, and this will have something to do with my main idea. That when finally Sukchia was moved to another family who were a lot warmer, his wounds began to heal. Now he lives a fully comfortable, fully confident, and a life full of direction. These wounds were healed by people who were willing to take him in and willing to embrace him, to put him into that closure. Then if we go all the way back to 2011, I had an amazing opportunity to go to a service trip in Haiti. And when we were in the plane and we were about to land, I saw what I thought were little stones on the floor of Haiti. But then as we got closer, I realized that they were tents and rubble from the buildings of the previous earthquake. When we got down to the ground, we saw streets like totally destroyed. We saw tent cities, 100 tents lined up against each other. It was absolutely incredible. Our service project was to serve in an orphanage in a little town called Gantier, about an hour outside of the capital, Port-au-Prince. And what I learned there about giving has really brought me into a greater understanding of what it really is. When we arrived, the little girl came up to me and she introduced herself. Her name was Mary France, and actually the day we arrived, she turned 12. But the gift that she gave me was far more than I could give back to her. One might think that when you're around such desolation, like in Haiti, when you see earthquakes, the remnants of earthquakes, you see buildings, you see lots of tents, one might think that one would be so compelled to give all that they could. One would think it would be easy. You would feel just passionate about all you could see. But I actually found it very hard to give my very best. And I think that had a lot to do with the fear of not being enough. The fear of not being able to take Mary France's burdens and put it on my own shoulders. I'm sure that many people who've done service trips or volunteers have experienced a similar sensation before, where they feel like there's a certain threshold they have to reach to become perfect. They can never give enough. So every day I struggled a lot. I tried my best to love Mary France as much as I could. I walked with her, I talked with her in broken Haitian, I put her on the swings, I used to swing her, I held her hand, and she used to call me Chinois, which means Chinese in Haitian. And it was wonderful, it was absolutely wonderful. But on the second or third day, Mary France all of a sudden grabs my arm, and he brings me over to one of the translators. And so Mary France starts saying something to the translator, something that seemed kind of important. So I was kind of listening, but I didn't understand what she was saying. And then the translator looks into my eyes and says with shock, she says, "You replaced my father." And this moment, my world was, I don't know how to explain it. It was ineffable. I felt so relieved and so fulfilled. I felt so happy. And what Mary France taught me that day was what giving really is. And I believe that giving is commitment. I believe that because she called me my father, her father, I was able to reach that point where I had to do what a father did to her. I denied my fears when I'm trying to love her. I denied my own selfishness. I tried my best to deny my own desires. And she read that. She got that. And interestingly enough, I realized that our parents do this for us every single day. I know, right? When we were little toddlers, our parents have to deal with our whininess, our moodiness, our sleepiness, and strangely enough, when we're teenagers, they have to deal with that too. But finally, when you're an adult, when you become 18 and you're about to go to college, all that emotional investment, all that physical investment, all that mental investment has to go away. I don't know, like, my parents are freaking out about me going to college right now, and they're trying very, very hard to let go. It is incredibly difficult because but parents give so much to their children. And so, finally, at the end of our service trip, when I had to separate myself from little Mary France, it was so painful. I don't know how to... I felt like I was being separated from my child, my only child, my flesh and blood. It was so painful, but amongst that displeasure, in that pain, I realized that at that moment, I gave Mary France all that I could. And I believe that giving is a commitment in this way, that when we leave finally what we've been investing ourselves into, a little of us sort of disappears. But we know that that little part of ourselves is in a better place. Mary France used to tell me, as a service corps, we were told to get the children to think about their dreams, to think about who they wanted to be when they grow up. And you know, and it's really, really funny. Some people say, I want to be the next great football player. And then I recall one person saying, when I grow up, I want to be a taxi driver. And he was really, really certain about it. But when I asked Mary France, she said, I want to be a mother. And I want to have children of my own. And I want to open an orphanage, just like this one. And that is incredible because she lost her parents for seemingly no rational reason. The world just suddenly shook and she lost her parents. So this is what I want to leave with you today. I believe that giving is commitment. But not only that, when we finally commit to something, when we deny ourselves, when we face our fears, when we deny our selfishness, when we deny ourselves, and we give that part of ourselves to other people, they can do the same. And I think that's what makes giving so immortal. Thank you very much.